All right, welcome back, Cowboys Nation. Another edition of Mad Cowboys Disease here to talk about your 3-1 Dallas Cowboys, extending that winning streak to 3 under Cooper Rush, who, by the way, made some history on Sunday. First Cowboys quarterback to go 4-0 in his first 4 starts. Just like that, yes, if you're on YouTube, Mark is putting up the gang signs just to make sure that you understand what 4-0
I don't know
looks
if
like.
my camera's mirrored image, so I was trying to.
Yeah, I think they'll get the gist of it. Either 0-4, 4-0. They can look at the record. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of everything that happened on Sunday, I wanted to give a special shout out to Mr. Colin Cowherd, who
Our
so
favorite.
triumphantly proclaimed back in March that Carson Wentz was the best quarterback in the NFC East and couldn't even take down the backup of one of those quarterbacks that he said he was better than. So,
Yeah. So he may
any
be.
opportunity that we can get, we always take it.
You got to take those shots when we get them.
Oh, absolutely, because that dude's
Yeah.
a
You know,
jackweight.
we've gone in on Colin a bunch of times on our old show, but yeah, he's. I don't know. Like I said, I'm convinced that he doesn't watch the game. He just kind of, has the game on TV while he's having his fucking expensive meals and shit.
His
I
fancy
don't,
dinners in his
yeah.
Santa Monica home, wherever
Yeah,
he
and
might
then he
be.
hears a little tidbit on the, from the announcers, be like, "Oh, I should look into this." And
See,
yeah,
see what I can come up with.
yeah,
So getting into Sunday, 25-10 win for the Cowboys at home. Again, that winning streak up to 3 now. All 3 of those games in the absence of Dak Prescott. Separate show coming soon. There is no quarterback controversy, but we're going to try to not get into that tonight. But we will start with our studs and duds from the game. Both of us were very, very high. And if you aren't yet, I don't know what's wrong with you on this Dallas Cowboys defense. It is legit.
yep,
It is solid.
yep.
Cooper Rush, after the game, said, "We're winning because of this defense." And it's that simple. And he couldn't
I
be more right.
I couldn't agree more, Cooper.
19
Yeah,
points is the most that they've given up so far this year. Haven't hit the 20 mark. But we have it going flashing across the bottom line right now. We got 17, 16. Yeah, I'm not going to wait for that. 17, 16, and 10. 19 in the first week against the Bucks. But again, just solid shutdown defense from all 11 that are out there.
yeah. Yeah, we keep talking about it, but I'll bring up four fingers again. That's how many touchdowns they've allowed this season. That's only
Right.
4 in 4 games, which is incredible. I think only the Buccaneers, maybe in Green Bay's defense, have a better scoring defense right now. The way they're playing has just been fantastic to watch, and it's it. He's their play alone has taken more pressure off Cooper Rush than his receivers bailing him out in the running game.
Right.
When you got a guy that doesn't have to worry about if the game is close, then Cooper Rush with his years of experience, as he's going to be able to keep it within reason. So props to the defense, man. They're playing just incredibly. I was expecting a little more in the sack department after Washington gave up 9 last week, but beggars can't be choosers. They got
No,
after Carson. They got it done. So
that's something that we're not going to harp on just because of how special they actually were. They still got to him 11 times. They hit him 11 times. They had 6 tackles for loss, 2 sacks altogether. Kept pressure in his face. One of the guys that I wanted to mention just how great he was. If you thought he was good last year, he's improved even more this year. Dan Quinn brought it up before this game and said that Trayvon Diggs has even gotten better, and we saw it multiple times with the interception, batted down 4 passes, and 2 of them on critical
yeah,
fourth downs,
yeah,
and just fantastic plays too. I think the second one on the 4th and 2, I believe is what it was, where he would just kind of looked up at the last second and threw his hand up there, saw it, found it, knocked it out of bounds, and just kept the. I mean, gosh, I forgot the tweet. somebody put up the numbers that Terry McLaurin had against Trayvon, and it was nothing.
2 catches for like 16 yards or
15
something.
yards or something like that off of 6
yeah.
targets. I mean, just he couldn't do anything.
Yeah, I for the life of me don't understand why teams keep testing him. You know, I think there's just this looming cloud that started from PFF that he gives up a lot of yards, which I think is complete bullshit. You know, PFF awards yards to the guys that are closest around the receivers. They don't know the assignments of these guys. They don't know that. This could be a whole other show that I'm getting into, you know, talking about how PFF grades Diggs in the bottom third of the league, but the guy that goes out there and you see it with your own eyeballs, like how he's playing. He's lights out there. No, I don't understand why teams keep testing him.
I will say that there were a number of times last season where he did get just absolutely torched. And you saw him looking around. He didn't know where he was.
I think, you know,
the receiver make a double move on him and he'd be gone. But we haven't seen that through 4 games this year. And it was sporadic last year. It wasn't like it happened.
And you gotta think he's only a 3rd-year guy. He's in his 3rd year of his league in the league, and he's gonna have growing pains, you know, from his rookie year
like
into this year.
Does.
Yeah, but I don't buy that he gave up over 1,000 yards. I think they on the game they put up a little since 2020. He's given up 1,600 yards. I was like, well, that's an unfair stat. Like you can really pick and choose which. Like you want to go that far out in his career that he's given up that many yards just to make it look like a big number. Like why don't you put up these last 4 games in this season? How many yards has he given up? I would reckon not much.
I would reckon it's below 100 to be honest at this point.
Yeah.
Especially after who he was guarding today, and you think about other even the other guys that are around him. Donovan Wilson is playing great. Jordan Lewis, I thought, was doing okay before he went out, but the whole secondary. I mean, you can pick and choose everybody. You wanted to go ahead and shout out Deron Bland. I'm going to let you shout out Deron Bland.
Yeah,
how good everybody is playing. It's so good.
The rookie got involved. You know, I think he had a really good preseason, and with Jordan Lewis, I think he might have tweaked his hamstring or something in pregame. So I think he tried to go, but Bland got pretty much the whole game as the nickel guy, and he really didn't, you know, allow much. A couple catches here and there, and then he had that big pick in the 4th quarter that you know was a game changer when Washington was trying to drive and bring it within 1 score, and Carson throws it over the middle, and you got the rookie just watching the guy's eyes, and he made a great play.
Great anticipation on his part.
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, you really can't fault this defense right now, and it's another guy that I want to throw out there is Neville Gallimore. You know, we haven't talked about him much, but he really had a good game with the sack, and he was filling the run lanes well. Like Washington, they ran the ball well, and that's something you could say that they did well, but I think that was more of a coach's decision to keep going with the run game. I think teams are afraid of this pass rush, and they don't want to throw the ball. So if you keep running the ball, even when you're down 2 scores, eventually you're going to have to start throwing. You're going to have to deal with this pass rush. And Washington they decided not to do it until late in the 4th quarter. They kept running the ball, and you know that's a decision, but they were down 2 scores. That's when I knew the game was in hand because eventually they had to abandon the run, and they didn't until late in the 4th quarter. So, but yeah, Neville Gallimore had a great game.
Yeah, go ahead.
Finish. Neville Gallimore, he really had a great game. I saw him closing down a few run games. A lot of Washington's runs bounced to the outside, and that was because Gallimore was creating a mess in there. So he had a good one. I like what I saw out of him.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, an argument can be made for practically anybody among the 11 at any given time on the defensive side of the ball. One little thing that I did want to mention, discipline. Let's go.
Yes.
4 penalties for 20 yards. That was it.
Yeah.
And none of them were drive killers. None of them really put them in bad positions. We watched another team just completely annihilate themselves in the penalty game, which is something that we're used to. I didn't
Yeah.
write it down, but I think Washington had 11 for like 130 or
Yeah.
somewhere around there. Just something absolutely ridiculous.
I was
And
like, that's usually
Cowboys are out there playing
flipped.
sound football. It was
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. So maybe maybe these coaches started doing their jobs and gotten after these guys about these stupid penalties. But
remember
you
the
hope,
rules that we talked about a couple weeks ago. Maybe they started making them doing rules.
Yeah, you hope that that's the case. We'll see if moving forward, if it could be just a fluky game where Washington was making all the mistakes, and
right.
But if that stays consistent, then moving forward, I mean, there's really not much stopping this team from playing really well and eventually getting to the postseason.
Right, because you're thinking once Dak comes back, and I'm not saying they're playing necessarily conservative right now, but if you're playing almost completely clean football from a penalty standpoint, your defense is playing the way that they're playing, and then you get your $40 million quarterback out there with the return of Michael Gallup. Thank God you're back. God, that was so much fun to watch.
Yep.
CeeDee Lamb being the number one guy that we think he can be. Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz back healthy. I think Jake Ferguson is coming into his own. Hendershot had a great game last week. Just a bunch of weapons around him. And then you start opening up the run game that we're going to get into because that was sad to watch.
Yep.
But things can only improve.
I think the O-line is going to improve as well. As they start to get continuity and some of the, like, Peters had a rough game, but he kept going in and out in different series, and you can't do that as an offensive lineman. You need continuity on your line. So they got to figure out the left guard situation because, I don't know if McGovern's the guy. I don't know if Peters is the guy, but someone's got to take a hold of that and, win that position outright because it's the rotation and the rotation on the offensive line just doesn't do anything for their continuity. These guys played. They're one of the few positions on the football team that the guys play together constantly. They have different languages. They know, based on like grunts and that which way they're going to go, who needs to peel off from a block, who's, so the guys need continuity. And once they get that left guard position figured out, I think, the sky's the limit for the O-line. I will say, though, through 4 games, they've only allowed 5 sacks. So they're as much as, we give them grief, they really, they're protecting Rush pretty well. And that bodes well for Dak on his return.
Oh, absolutely. It should give him all the confidence in the world watching the way the defense is playing and watching Cooper Rush stay upright and be able to release the ball, go through his progressions, and find the open man should give him all of the confidence he needs once he comes back.
I think Rush. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to give another quick shout out that I almost forgot about.
Just real quick about the offensive line. Yeah. Cooper Rush is getting the ball out quick. I think he's behind only Tom Brady in the league in release quickness or whatever. So that's helping the offensive line. I will say that. So as much as the rushes or the line has protected Rush, Cooper Rush is helping them out tremendously too. So
absolutely.
Right, go ahead. Sorry for interrupting you, buddy.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Former offensive line, dude. I love talking about the big boys.
I know you do. Well, I'm going to keep talking about one. Matt Farniok. I wanted to shout him out when I saw him line up at fullback today. And not only did he line up at fullback when it was a play action run, the dude ran out for a pass 5 yards on the line of scrimmage. I was like,
throw it to the man.
Give it right to him. Give it to him. Secure it, turn around, and just run. I wanted to see that.
Just that rumbling, bumbling, stumbling.
Oh, yeah. I was ready to just watch the big man, the movie, The Replacements. You get a fat man score, then you get a fat man celebration. That's what I wanted to see. But we didn't, and I'll move on because it's just going to only hurt my feelings. You had a stud dud for the game, so since we've gotten through – oh, no, I guess I did want to mention CeeDee Lamb as another stud for this game.
Yep.
This is what we're expecting every single game out of number 88, and we're starting to see it. Starting with the second half last week and then this week. 6 for 97 on 8 targets, a touchdown, and just an absolute clinic in route running.
Yeah. Oh,
the dude.
That touchdown was beautiful.
Aesthetically pleasing to the eye to watch him. Because you don't get to see the whole thing. They're focused on the line, the quarterback, what he's doing. But when they show the replay of just CeeDee Lamb running that route, oh my goodness.
Yeah, had the DB on
made
skates,
me want to cry.
man.
It was so beautiful. It was fantastic. And it wasn't his only one. He had several routes like that where he was just like, oh, there was corner's gone because, hey, that route running was phenomenal.
Hell yeah, dude. Like I said, he had the DB on skates, man. Like I talked about last week on that drop, you don't get that kind of separation in NFL games. Well, he created that with that route. Like
Absolutely.
that was such a beautiful thing to watch, and watch the ball right into his hands, right into the bucket, touchdown. I loved it.
Honestly, dude, that drop might be what has turned him around.
Yeah,
because the first couple of games were lackluster. There's no sugarcoating it or anything. It wasn't good. He's supposed to be our number one guy, and he wasn't living up to it.
Yeah.
That drop last week, I think, is what has led us to what we're seeing out of him now.
Yeah,
He's gotten motivated and jacked up.
Since that drop, he's taken over the fourth quarter of last week's game, and then he had a great game this week. So
absolutely,
maybe he's starting to come into his own a little bit, and it's beautiful to watch, man.
That's what we want to see. I won't be taking that 88 away from him and moving him down to 87. You had so now we get into that stud dud, and it's the guy throwing him the ball.
Yeah, it sounds a little nitpicky, but Cooper Rush, for as good as he's been, I don't want to take anything away from him. But because of the Washington penalties, like we were talking about earlier, 2 picks, 2 bad throws that were negated by penalties, but that could have been bad for this team. The turnover battle is the most important thing when you got a backup quarterback. He can't make mistakes. He really can't. And he had one in the first quarter, I think, and one late in the game where it got turned over by a penalty. And thank God for that. But old Rush boy can't make those mistakes, man.
No, and that was one thing watching the game where you're sitting there going, oh, thank God. Excuse me, because throughout a good portion of that game, even with the penalties, even when Washington was shooting themselves in the foot, the Cowboys just could not figure it out.
Yeah.
Once they get into the red zone, it's like, ooh, I don't know what to do here. They were 1 for 3 in the red zone today, and it's been like that for the last 3 games that Cooper's been in there. And that's one of the things, again, when we get to talking about this quote-unquote quarterback controversy, that will be a game changer once Dak is in there.
Yeah.
There's going to be a big difference in offensive production once Dak comes back, at least in my opinion. I'm sure it's yours as well. But I love Cooper again. I'm right there with you. What he has done in 3 games, technically turnover-free through 3 games, although you could make the case that with those penalties it would be different. But we could be looking at we could be on here yelling at the Cowboys for losing today if illegal contact wasn't called on one of them. I forgot what the second penalty was, but just one of those things again. Yeah. Once you get in, if those turnovers stand in the way that they operate in the red zone, it's a different ball game for sure.
Yeah. That's what I keep thinking about when I think about this quarterback controversy. Like as soon as Cooper Rush has a dud of a game where he actually looks like a backup quarterback, all these little gremlins saying that Dak should sit and Cooper Rush is number 1, they're gonna disappear as soon as Rush has a bad game. And I don't hope for that because I'm a Cowboys and a Cowboys fan, and I love seeing them win. So it makes me feel bad because I have to talk badly about Cooper Rush in order, but to make the point that Dak is better. but he's really done such a great job the last 3 games. So I don't want to
He
take
has.
anything away from him, you know?
But I mean, without the penalties, he did look more, in my opinion, more like a backup today. I think he's
Yeah.
15 of 27. Some of those throws were more errant than what we've been seeing. And as he
Yeah.
does get it out quickly, there were some balls that you're looking at going, oh man, you gotta hit that one. I think there was a
Yeah.
screen pass that they couldn't even complete without any pressure in his face. So it was one of
Yeah.
those, it started to come out this week, and hopefully our bandwagoners or whoever just hates Dak to begin with notice that there is a major difference between these two.
Yeah.
And one
They're
thing,
I
go
feel
ahead.
bad for people. They're prisoners of the moment. You know, they see what's in front
Oh
of
yeah,
them, and that's the only thing that's true.
that's what you live with when you're a Cowboy fan.
Yeah.
Though unfortunately, I mean, I think when you're a true Cowboy fan, as we are, and the people that we associate ourselves with, because I can't deal with the dog shit that I hear from these people who show up when the Cowboys, when Dak is 13-3 his rookie season,
Yeah.
and then it goes downhill the next year, and Dak's not the right guy, and then Dak brings it back again. You go 12-5, lose in the playoffs, or that was the following year, last year,
Yeah.
and now it's like, oh, we're 3-0 without Dak, 3-1 overall. Shouldn't the same thing happen like it did with Tony and Tony Romo and Dak back in the day?
That
Like,
was
no, that's not the case. That was 10 games.
that
That
was
was
a
10 games by the
completely
time
different
Tony Romo
situation.
came back, and they were 9-1. Get
Yeah.
out of here.
It was a completely different situation. Romo was on the tail end of his career. He had been through injuries in the past that were, and he was just, I think he still has some juice. Like he played, later in the season against the Eagles and he torched them. But he was on the tail end of his career. He was, his, every other season was just a back injury or something like that. And
Right.
Dak was playing out of this world. And Cooper, as much as he's done, that's great. He's not playing Dak out of his position.
No.
So all these little trolls they just need to go back under their bridges because Dak is coming back. I'm sorry, I hate to be
It's
the
going to
bearer of bad
happen.
news. I love me some Cooper Rush right now.
Rush hour.
Yeah, but Dak's a man, dude. And he's
The
going to
one
be the man
thing,
for a lot longer.
when Dak does come back, the dud that I had for this game was the run game.
Yeah.
And that is one thing I am looking forward to when Dak does come back, when you can open up the passing game a little bit more, especially, again, as we mentioned, Gallup being back, having a healthy receiving room, all that good stuff.
Yep.
They had 61 total yards today, 2.1 yards a carry.
Yeah.
I think Tony Pollard only had 6 or 8 carries. Zeke had 19. We're sitting here wondering, like, where the hell is Tony? I remember you tweeted there's a Tony Pollard sighting.
I was
Like,
about to put in a missing persons report in the first quarter. Like, where is Pollard?
It was sad. I was sitting here going, like, here we go. I'm about to throw Kellen Moore under the bus again because Tony Pollard's not out there. We're not seeing the mixture that worked so well last week.
I
And
mean,
we're sitting here watching Zeke run into a brick wall.
Yeah, last week there were drives where they were both out there on the same play, and Zeke, you could give it to either one of them, and both of them were running hard and finding the holes. And this week, I don't think it mattered. And it sounds a little nitpicky. It didn't matter in the end, but yeah, Zeke had a big catch and run in the first quarter, and then he was, 1 yard, 2 yard. Lucky if he fell forward and got back to the line of scrimmage. Washington, for what they are, they have a good defensive line that was really giving this offensive line troubles in the run game. So,
I think he could still scheme a way into it, though. That's the only problem, that we're still waiting for him to figure it out on the fly during a game. Because for what I watch, and I'm not as football smart as you are, but when I see what they're running, I saw one stretch play that went for like -2, and that's, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I don't see enough of it. I don't see enough of trying to stretch out the line to either side, the strong side, weak side, misdirection. I don't really see any of that. There's not a lot of mixing it up when it comes to the way they run the ball, at least the way that I see it. So when it's not working, there's no change to it. It's like, hey, let's just keep running into a brick wall and maybe, it'll finally crumble and we can, break off a 9, 10, 15 yarder or something like that. Which eventually did happen a couple times, but just not enough for any, real mixture in the play calling.
Yeah. Last week there was a little, spiciness, if you could say, in the run game. They had a little where Zeke crashed inside and then Rush pitched it over to Pollard, who streaked up through, off tackle. And you see that kind of little nuances of it. They had a couple jet sweeps in there that worked. They had, I'm talking about last week. This week, it was just Rush turns around, hands it to Zeke, and he runs into the back of his offensive guard. And
then he can't go anywhere.
I don't understand. Like, all we want as fans is consistency from the coaching staff, from referees, from players and their play. And this coaching staff, Kellen Moore, I think he's got a great offensive mind, but on the fly, like, he has a great offensive mind Monday through Saturday, but on Sunday on the fly, he just has a hard time making adjustments. At least that's what we see.
It looks like he's got the first quarter and a half figured out, and then once it gets there, it's like, okay, well, it worked. Do I keep doing it or do I mix it up? Like, no, I'll keep doing it because it was working. But then if you don't keep mixing it up, then your defense starts to pick up on certain things, puts players in the right positions, and those plays don't work anymore.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating.
Yeah, it really is. And, I had a thought in my head and it just disappeared. Yeah. Probably the whiskey.
As is life. Life happens. Whiskey, beer, whatever. Yeah. Any other thoughts on Sunday's matchup before we move into the Rams next week? I have to sneeze.
We don't have a sneeze button, do we? I'm just really impressed by this team, especially this defense, and the way they've been able to handle the adversity. So, a lot. You'll hear these national media pundits. They'll pick the team that the Cowboys are playing against. I'm talking about like a Stephen A. type personality, and Stephen A. He's a Cowboys hater, but like last week he picked the Giants, and then his go-to when the Cowboys beat the Giants is, well, look who you're playing, the Giants. Like, you picked them to win there, dummy. So it's been. Oh, I think you're muted, buddy.
Oh, I am muted. Look at that.
There you are.
I was just saying that I avoid them at all costs because it's just ridiculous to listen to. And they're going to say the same thing this week. Colin Cowherd is going to come out and all he's going to say is that the offensive line for the Commanders is terrible and that Dallas has a okay defense, but they found a way to scheme around it and, just make it a nightmare for Carson Wentz. And then the DBs played well. And then this, that, or the other. It won't be Carson Wentz's fault. It'll be somebody else's fault.
That's why I'm excited for this next game, because this is going to be the real test. And
absolutely, the first one since week 1.
The Rams are a good team, and if the defense can play and get after Stafford and force him into bad mistakes, and the offense can do just enough against a good defense, then I think we come away with a win. But a lot of things have to happen against good teams like this. So, I'm not ready to go out on that limb and say the Cowboys are going to beat the Rams, but I'm not scared of the Rams based on how the Cowboys have been. Based on how the Cowboys have been performing the last 3 weeks.
If their defense is going to play the same way, then no matter who's at quarterback, there is a shot.
Yeah.
And that is one thing. Maybe we can just save all of this for later in the week. But one thing I do want to say, if Dak does come back, I'm going to at least do my best to just be patient and let it ride. The guy's been out for a few weeks. And while he does get the same work with them that, he does during the off season, this, that, or the other, you are going to come back and have a little bit of rust. And they're going to play a better defense. They're going to play a better offense. This will be the first true test since the beginning of the season. And then you get the Eagles after that, and then you move back into your that little lackadaisical part of the schedule that we have. Even though the Lions seem like they can score at will, they just can't keep any points off the scoreboard.
The Lions are playing pretty well. They just don't have a defense. So
I think that's what I saw. I think they are the highest scoring team in the league, but they're 1-3. So obviously they're not keeping points off the scoreboard. So I think we'll save our Dak talk and our Rams talk for later in the week and get prepared for next Sunday. Will be game of the week on Fox. So we hopefully won't have any. I didn't check the Cardinal schedule. For those of you that don't know, we are in Phoenix and we have to battle with that bullshit every single week. Because this week it was the London game had nothing to do with it. But when they play, the way that the schedule works out is if you have 2 afternoon games, then you only have 1 morning game.
Yeah.
And then it just depends on who has the morning game or the opposite. There's only 2 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon or the other way around.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly annoying. And I'm not going to throw my children under the bus, but my daughter had a soccer game today, so I couldn't go out and watch it. I was sitting there, what's the word? Illegally streaming it on my phone.
Yep.
For a good portion of it, but I can't wait until I am almost certain that Amazon is going to get the ticket package next year.
Yeah.
And if they just throw in, like, if I have to pay an extra $5, $10, I'm going to be so jazzed.
Done.
I don't think it's going to be much because you have to.
It's already $100-something for Prime a year.
Prime benefits. More, you know how many people are going to sign up for $100 for the entire year?
Oh, absolutely.
To have Prime and then to have every football game, it's going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, they
I'm
could
go get me some TVs. I don't know. I feel like they haven't done it yet, and I don't know if they would do it for football. You kind of turn people off because if you have to pay for both at the same time,
that's the hope.
If you want Prime and then and ticket all combined into one package, a lot of people aren't going to want one or the other. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
We'll see.
Keeping the fingers crossed. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitter. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you are on the YouTube channel, they're right down here. I'm going to have Mark change his later on for the next one. M. Boynton 78. I changed mine just because we put it right down here at the bottom. I was like, oh, hey, that seems kind of redundant to just have it right above each other. But please find us on Twitter, find us on YouTube, Instagram, whatever social media thing. We're trying to get onto all of them, but we're getting old and we're not as smart with that shit anymore.
Yeah. And if you
guys are into it,
like we said, if you guys have a channel that you want to grow, then we can help each other out. So just reach out to us.
Absolutely. Grow the community and come talk to us. Come. We'd love to have more people on here chatting about the boys because it's what makes us happy. And, generally our wives will listen to us for about 7 minutes before the face turns the other way and they stop caring.
Yep.
So if you're in that same boat.
The only reason why we started is because neither one of our wives give a shit.
No, they don't. They love us, but, it gets to a point when you start talking about red zone efficiency and sack rates and pressure rates and stuff like that they're just like, it's all gibberish. So we will see you guys later in the week. Thanks for hanging out with us. We love you. Go Cowboys.
Take it easy, y'all.